call to order this emergency meeting of the Rental Housing Advisory Board. Can we have a roll call, please?
Katrina DeGroot, Lindsay Erickson. Here. Danny Garcia.
Here.
Alec Goulan.
Here.
Todd Hutchison. Linda Javaltis. Here. Don Lord. Agnes Payne.
Here.
All right, thank you. Welcome to our new members. This is not the perhaps the most ideal setting for welcoming new people into the fold, but we're happy to have you here to discuss these important matters. So if I can just find the agenda. Do we have any citizen statements out there? Are there any citizens in the house to speak, or I don't know, in the meeting?
None present.
Give a minute or so for the others to join.
I think that's Don Lord.
Hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon. Mr. Lord, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you. I had a little hard time connecting. I'm just on my phone, so.
Okay. Well, everyone speak, slowly and loudly and clearly, just to make sure that everyone gets everything. But we've started the meeting, so we've done the roll call. Welcome,
Okay.
Todd. And we have no citizens in the house, item C of the agenda, so that moves us to item D, approval of the minutes from way back February 12th, 2020. Excuse me. Is there any discussion on the minutes?
We would need a motion and a second to approve.
So moved.
I'd second.
Second.
And how shall we conduct voting in this circumstance?
Yep, you can just do a voice vote for minutes.
Okay, so all in favor of approving, is there any discussion on no discussion? Move in a second, so all in favor of approving the minutes as written, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? All right, so that unanimously passes, which brings us to item F on the agenda, our discussion regarding the eviction moratorium, which ended on May 26th. So for a little background to fill people in for whoever needs it, in wake of COVID-19, as part of the governor's stay-at-home order, a moratorium was passed on eviction, so housing providers were unable to evict tenants, especially given the circumstance that so many people were out of work, becoming unable to pay rent. So a moratorium was put into place. That has since been ended on May 26th, along with other parts of the order, with a few caveats. So for tenants living in federally subsidized housing, that moratorium moratorium on evictions and fines for them extends till the end of July, I believe. But everyone else is, anyone with a non-federally subsidized landlord who hasn't been able to pay their rent is now kind of left with perhaps limited options. So given that this issue will and is most likely immediately affecting tenants in Oshkosh, I thought it was important to hold this meeting this afternoon. So with that, in the April 28th common council meeting, a few options were brought before the council in terms of things that the city can perhaps do. Now, of course, there is federal money coming through the pipeline in the form of the CARES Act, although I understand that most of that goes through the state, and that we have some representatives here in town that can help folks access that. I think we'll have a little bit more discussion on that later. There's also the HEROES Act, which is being discussed at the federal level, which would also help provide funding. Other than that, the main thing that this community can consider doing, and we as a board can consider doing, is some things that other communities in the U.S. have done in the wake of COVID-19, which is perhaps the creation of some sort of fund or program to help, especially lower income renters with things like utility bills, rent payments, but can also help, housing providers, the property owners with things like mortgage payments. And I also think it's important that we as the board sort of leverage our existing resources and connections to help sort of push available options and anything we come across or anything we, decide today. So any questions on the background?
What would this is Danny Garcia speaking, what would the creation of such a fund look like? Would the fund come from individuals donating to the fund, and then it would be dispersed by the board or by the council, or how would that work?
So based on my research, this is Tim, based on my research, communities have done a combination of donation-based programs, but also allocating resources from the CARES Act, as well as sort of reallocating resources from things like the Community Development Block Grant program. But I understand that Mr. Lord and Ms. Erickson have been doing a little work on helping sort of implement or help give people access to the CARES Act funding and the Wisconsin Rental Assistance Program funding. Would either of you be willing to speak on that a little bit so we can see what's sort of already in the works?
Sure. One of the things I want to mention to you is there are things that started up on this issue, but I think that we could coordinate them a little better. The agency in this area, the CAP agency, is advocate for the 4 counties. I think Winnebago County is one of them. And they're just training and educating their people this week. And on June 8th, they will be able to start up the actual program. So, this was passed, I think, I don't know, last week or the week before, but once the money was allocated, they have to, get up to speed. And we're kind of track actually how many evictions are actually occurring. Up to last week, there was 30. It's unknown if those were old or new or backlog at this point. I don't remember, Lindsay might be able to illuminate us, there was like 275 or 295 people that already applied for the RAP, they're calling it RAP, Wisconsin Rental Assistance Program. So they're working on that through AdvoCap, and that's the agencies that's going to be doing that. And I saw your stuff on your page. I posted the same things, but there will be additional qualifications in addition to those slides from that PowerPoint presentation. You have to prove that you were unable to make rent because of your income reduction from COVID, and that's going to have to be some type of statement from your employer. And I don't know if they have a form for that or what that's going to be. But we won't really know until next week. And I've asked Advocate if they can put out a press release on this so that we can clear. There's a lot of people having a lot of misunderstandings of what this is going to involve. And I'm hoping they're going to do that next week.
And we do have 2 representatives from Advocap here. I don't know if you would want to come up and share a little bit more about the RAP program and what that's going to look like?
Sure, I'll be happy to. Good afternoon. My name is Lou Shear, and I'm the Affordable Housing Director at AVOCAP. And Don is right. We are one of the community action agencies in Wisconsin that is getting to work with $25 million that was put into rental assistance program. The allocations just came out late last week, and AdvoCap has been awarded $1.1 million, of which just under $890,000 will go directly to rental assistance. And that is in 4 counties. AdvoCap represents Fond du Lac, Winnebago, and Green Lake always, but we've been asked to also represent Calumet in this case because they don't have a community action agency. Don, nobody's more frustrated than I am that I don't have the answers, but we went through 2 days of intensive training with a lot of errors, as many of us who have been doing remote trainings have found. But today and yesterday, our whole focus was how to fill out a WEAP application. The first thing that every tenant is going to have to do is fill out an application for energy assistance. Why? Because that's the software the state of Wisconsin is going to be using to implement this program throughout. There was 132 people being trained, so nobody's farther ahead or behind AdvoCap. That's the way the state is right now. You have to understand that, you know, the wheels always move a little bit slower than we'd like to, but we're quite proficient or got a lot of great information about how to get the information in. We have over 400 people on our wait list for rental assistance already. And so we've encouraged them to reach out to their county. Energy Service, ESI Inc. is the company here in Winnebago County that handles that. So we're hoping that they're far along on their application already. I cannot proceed with any rental assistance until that application is complete. So when we do that, we are looking to help only renters. And so one of the questions came up, can I help somebody with lot rent of a mobile home? We cannot because they own the house. They have to be at 80% or less of county median income. So if people are applying right now, and I'll use my son as a perfect example, he did not get an employment, he's eligible but has not received any unemployment. So his income for the month of May is 0. His annual income is 0, even though he makes $25,000. I mean, he's not rich, but he's making some money. Having said that, he would now be eligible for energy assistance by doing this application. Now, we know the utility moratorium hasn't been lifted yet, so we don't even know the impact of that yet for renters and for homeowners. But this automatically would get people signed up and eligible and an allocation set aside for their energy assistance. We're then able to help them with rent up to $3,000. They have not, they being the state, have not given us all the particulars. They're doing an FAQ and we can call for one-on-one. Again, did I mention there was 132 people being trained? 8 of them were from our organization. So we're going to be heavy-handed with this. We're not just me sitting behind the desk trying to answer all these questions. So 1 person per household. And the reason I say that is if I was sharing my apartment with this woman and we both applied, only one of us would be allowed to have qualified for the household and get assistance. We also know that no public rental assistance benefits, meaning Section 8 properties, even my homeless program, are not eligible for this. And why? Because their income is, or their rent is based on their income. So if they went to 0, that's been reported and the rent is being paid in full. So right now, actually, I look pretty good in front of some landlords. The customer must provide documentation showing loss of employment. So there are forms, but I'm not submitting them. We're putting them out willy-nilly because I want them to come through our application process so we do things in an orderly fashion. So things get done step by step the way they should. And those forms are somewhat self-declaration if they cannot get their information from their employers. Some small businesses are locked down, they can't get this, but they hopefully will be able to supply a letter that they receive, something that says, you know, we're going to lay off right now until this COVID thing is figured out. Also, if I'm staying home with minor age children because school closed, somebody had to teach them, I didn't have Dave Care because we know that was cut back. They are also eligible. So those are things that we just found out. Unemployment income will be counted, however, for this, both the federal and the state. And I say that for the reason that my son just got his check actually Monday on June 1st, on June 1st, and he received 7 months plus the $600 for each week, so he would be over income. Okay, so that's a concern. Once people get money, then they're penalized right away. But unfortunately, or fortunately, people need to know that unemployment is considered, because it's not usually part of energy assistance. We have two choices. We can help them with a security deposit for a new apartment, or we can help them for rental assistance. And I say that because if a landlord has decided that they're not going to renew the lease, I am more likely to pay the security deposit and first month's rent of the new apartment. This program is only accessible by CAP agencies, and so that's another reason I'm not going to just put the forms on a website and say, here, grab them up and use them. We'll administer them as we need to. And the payment will be made directly to the landlord. So of course I have a landlord vendor sheet that I have to fill out. We'll send it to the state of Wisconsin. They'll become a vendor. If they're a large property management company and they have 7 or 12, 20 people applying, it'll be on one check, and it'll be listed by, Joe Smith, Lou Shear, Mike Bonitz, whatever, rent paid, and they'll have gotten a letter and they'll understand how much they're getting. The tenant will also receive a letter and understand how much is being paid on their behalf. So the landlord just needs to fill out the form one time once they become a vendor, and again, that form will come through us, and we'll send it directly on to the state. So they need to have a current year application for energy assistance, or WEAP. Remember, that started September 1st of 2019. It goes back that far. In order to update it at this time, we may update their income to show what they're earning now compared to what they might have been earning in September. There's an income attestation form that says, this is the money that I've been making. It goes back to the fact that they have been affected by COVID. If they have no income, they can attest to that by writing, just simply writing on there's a form, filling it out, completing it, attesting to the fact that they have zero income. And all of this gets put into the RAP application on the on the energy assistance form into the computer. I will not be keeping paper files on people. All of this will be downloaded and done. So I wish I had far more. I have many questions that I put in, and they're going to put an FAQ out in the next 2 days. So Don, anyone more than I wishes I had a lot more answers on the what do I do about Jane, but I know what we're going to get started with, and I know we're going to get proceeding, and we're going to get moving, and we have been working with people right along. So that's the information. We have one person currently at AdvoCap who's been taking all the calls. I say that because the story's been consistent. Every time we ask, do you have a current application in for energy assistance? Have you received it this year? If no, then we need to either go online and get them started to fill out that application, or make an appointment with ESI Inc. to get it done. That's the first process. That's critical. I don't want to file for energy assistance, okay? I can't help you with REP. It's just that simple. So having said that, Don, do you have more questions for me right here, right now that I can't answer?
Yeah, just a couple. First off, I think one of the biggest things is this thing had a big press release, and then of course people like you have to go back and figure out how it's going to actually be administered. Okay. Now,
Absolutely.
You stated you had 400 people apply. Now, is that across the 4 counties?
Yes.
That you are, okay. So do you have a handle on how many are actually in Winnebago County?
I do not. I know that there was less than 10 that applied for Calumet. And I did not. They were literally ringing off the hook, because we've only been taking these calls for a few days. Once things, and again, the publication came out for the benefit of the opportunity and for the governor. I mean, I completely understand. It's not unusual for us to get announcements of grant awards that we can't start for months. But it's frustrating as it was done so close to the end of the moratorium. We hope to be working with landlords. We hope they understand. I am under the impression that once an application is complete, meaning I have all the documentation, which again, we're counting on people to get paperwork to us, it would be paid within 10 days. They cut checks on Monday morning and sent out Monday morning. So anything that's in the Wednesday before will be issued.
I'm sorry.
I have a question.
If I can just follow up one more on that 400 people. Now, of those 400 people, we know there's a lot of misunderstandings out there. Would you say, do you have any handle of these 400 people that applied? How many will probably qualify? Do you have any handle on that?
I have absolutely none.
Okay. Are you finding a lot of people are misunderstanding the qualifications? Or do you don't know?
I have found that a lot of people do not understand when I say, or we have asked them, have you applied for energy assistance? They say no. They're thinking since 2020. They're not thinking back to September. They're not thinking that they probably, that's not the usual system. So the counties have been getting a lot of calls from people who already have applications in for 2020. Don, I shared a story with you that I had a woman call me and I said, you know, is your income, have you been affected by COVID? And this is when I learned to be a little bit more clear. And she goes, oh yeah, I'm wearing a mask, I'm not going anywhere. And I said, I'm sorry, was your income affected by COVID? Well, no, I get Social Security and a little pension. And I said, are you behind in rent? She said, no, I just understand you're gonna pay June, July, and August rent. And, you know, so yes, I'm very aware that, you know, she did make her my wait list, just so you know. I mean, there was no need to put her on that wait list. You know, so we try to clear up those kind of questions, and it's, you know, it's very frustrating for people because, again, I can't answer each and every individual question. And again, anybody who does this for a living knows that when you ask a simple question, you can get anywhere from a yes or no answer to 15 minutes of what happened with their cat that day and trying to sort through that. And I'm just saying that's just the nature of people, right? So I'm not getting, you know, I don't know that people understand if they've never applied for energy assistance before, what the requirements truly are, what they have to do. So, you know, they're saying, okay, I'll do that. And, you know, most people have computer access. We're finding that. So they felt that they could fill out the computer on, you know, the online application. But again, ESI has informed me they've been getting a lot of phone calls from people asking who have already signed up this year. So once somebody is signed up this year, it's a matter of a much simpler process of just getting the last month's verification for income. But everything, like I said, all the proof has to come to us, and then we have to, you know, that can be in the form of they can take a picture and email it to me, and as long as I can read it and download it, that's sufficient. So it's, you know, we believe we can do this without any physical contact. People aren't going to have to come to our office if they don't want to. Actually, our offices are not open at the present time, but it just makes it that much easier for people if they have any amount of technology. If they, like I said, if they can take a picture and send it to me, I can use that.
Well, let us know when you get all those facts together of FAQs, or what do you call them? So I'll try and get those out to people as much as I can on my end. And I just want people to be aware there are other groups that are working on these issues in Oshkosh. I think Bob Peschel's been trying to put together a group as well. So I think we want to make sure we don't have ships passing in the night.
Oh, I absolutely agree. And you know that we sit on another group that's been working on this. The other nice thing about going through one agency is we also run the homeless program. I also have other, you know, federally funded prevention dollars that they may be eligible for. If they're at the verge of being homeless and they have absolutely no income, we have tenant-based rental assistance perhaps that we can line them up with. We do have a small amount of United Way. United Way is a very generous donor to us. However, when you're dividing it amongst 12 months and the amount of people that we're looking at assisting at this time, it becomes pretty small in the big picture. It's like I said, $890,000 is a lot of money, but it's no money when you're thinking about the amount of people in need right now. And so in Fond du Lac, we've had other private foundations. give money to AVOCAP and knowing and saying this is COVID-related, do with it what you do best. We have not had that offering in in Winnebago County, but certainly interested in helping broker that if we can.
Thank you. I'll let other people talk. Thank you so much, Lou.
Sure.
My question has to do with, and you probably don't know the answer to it, but is your perception that the city of Oshkosh should look into going forward with some kind of program, just our city?
What I've suggested, because the city of Fond du Lac asked me the same thing, I said, give me a week. Let's see how this starts rolling. Let's see let's see of the 400 plus people that we have on the list, how many are really eligible, how many are following through, you know, and I can certainly keep everyone in touch with how this is going. You know, we have 7 or 8 people who are going to be do this until we can hire. We have people that we're going to start interviewing next week. I expect to be very, very busy for a couple of weeks, and I think that we'll have a much better feel for that once we start doing it.
Linda, also, we still don't quite have a handle on how many people, you know, are going to be going through the eviction process, because that moratorium just went off. And so there's a lot of data yet to be gathered to figure out to the extent of the issue. So we're still at the kind of the primary stage on this to even know how big the problem will be.
I agree, Don. I've said this before. I think there's a whole group of people who are still the hidden homeless, meaning they've been doubled up, and as people are being asked to move at this point, we're going to not deal with one household, but perhaps 2. You know, there's just a lot of things we don't know.
How many, is there a timeline that this covers? Because you mentioned June, July, and August. Is it only for those 3 months? Is it for past months? Is there a time frame on this?
The money is going to be released as of June. It has to be COVID related. So since the whole shutting down the state happened in the end part of March, that's one of the questions we have out there. We believe that it can be April. It'll run till December 31st or until funds run out.
And so if they apply, let's say they apply June 8th, they're approved within a week, you know, I don't know. So that means they could apply for April, May, and June, those 3 months. Now, nothing changes in June. Do they have to reapply for July and August? Or since they've been approved, do they automatically keep getting payments until the money runs out?
They don't continue to get payments. That I have to require a requisition each time. I have been led to believe that each request for payment can be no more than $1,000 per person. So it's different, because if I live in a 1-bedroom and I'm paying $600 a month, $1,000 is going to cover me. If I'm a family of 7 and I'm living in a 5-bedroom and I'm paying $2,000 a month, $1,000 isn't going to cover me.
Right.
So that's a different issue, and that's where we may be looking to help piece together some things. It is definitely first come, first serve. If you have April, May, and June, I'm asking the question, can I write one check for $3,000? That's in an FAQ. That was not part of the how to fill out the application form. So that's the frustration of this. I'd like to think that I can provide one payment of $3. I mean, it would almost make sense to write one check instead of 3. But it would also then determine if I get through all 400 people and we're out of money, you would not get assistance with 2 other months.
Yeah, 890,000 sounds like a lot, but that's less than 300 people for $3,000.
Exactly.
You've already got 400 people on the waiting list. So,
Exactly. That's what I meant. It's a
yeah.
lot of money and it's nothing.
Yeah. Now, what happens, they apply June 8th, and you mentioned your son is a situation. They haven't gotten their unemployment, but then they do get their unemployment, and it's a big backlog. So now, is that money somehow clawed back from them that they got?
No.
So it's just a...
No. And one of the other things is that when we use United Way funds, we have what we call are you going to be a sustainability test? If I give you what happened, what's changed, and what about next month, are always the questions I ask. I lost my job, I got a new job, I'm gonna be solid, I'll get a new paycheck by next month, we'll move forward. Those people we can assist. I lost my job in January, I haven't been working at all, I've got no unemployment available to me. That's a harder sell, right? Because I mean, I can throw them $100 and it doesn't do anything.
Mhm.
You know, there's other programs that we can assist with, but that's, you know, what I do like about it is that it's, first of all, it's 1 month of income versus 3. So like I said, if I get $500 of unemployment, that's my $6,000 a year income. I'm now eligible for RAP, I'm eligible for energy assistance, I'm eligible for weatherization. You know, so it's all these kind of pluses on this end that we're trying, but you know, again, we don't know that 3 months from now we won't be back where we are. We have no idea. I mean, if we want to be on that side, we could be in a shutdown in September all over again. Students are kind of weeded out by their process. If you're under 25 and a full-time student, you're not going to get assisted. We've had a lot of phone calls from college kids. And unfortunately, you know, I feel, I've been there, done that, but we would, if that's what we were doing, we would be giving all the money to college students. So there's going to be some trial and error, and I'm not going to tell you the first week we're going to be terribly proficient in doing these applications in 25 minutes like they say it can be done. But we're going to do it. We're going to do our best job, and we're looking forward to helping people. We're looking forward to working with landlords, and you know, it's a benefit for them as well as it is for tenants, obviously, as we want to make landlords whole. But it goes back to how far does $1,000 go a month? I mean, that's real, right? Because we know a lot of rents are more than $1,000 in town. So, and it does not, if rent is included, if utilities are included in rent, I can still pay that. But if they're not included in rent, I cannot. Not with this money.
If, using your example of somebody that's a larger family that's in a house that's $2,000 a month, they get the $1,000, it doesn't cover it. Does the landlord have to accept the $1,000 at that point, or can they say, no, we're gonna move on, and then at that point you give them $1,000 to go towards the next place?
They would attest to the fact that they would not evict them for non-payment of rent, that they've worked on a repayment agreement, whatever. You know, we're not paying landlords or making them partially whole so they can turn around and evict them in 30 days. If they're going to evict them for other reasons rather than non-payment of rent, that's a different issue. But if, like I said, if I can't make them whole and they're not willing to work into a payment plan with the landlord or with the tenant, you know, that's part of the requirement.
But it's also, there's no obligation on the landlord's part to accept the $1,000?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, okay.
They could make the choice.
That
It's
is-
like I said, it became aware, and I'm not saying a lot of landlords are doing it, it's happened often, but when they found out they couldn't evict people for non-payment of rent, they just said, we're not gonna renew your lease. So you don't have to give a reason for that. But that isn't, if they're not going to be willing to hold on to the people, we will then work on helping people with down payment and first month's rent at a different location. Because it is about the tenants, okay?
Yeah.
I mean,
But it's still limited then, even if they're going to a different location and it's got to cover security deposit and rent, it's still limited to $1,000?
yes. Yeah. And I
So that family is still going to be in trouble.
absolutely, absolutely.
It's not as big an issue for the one-bedrooms and studios, but.
Which there are none.
But the larger
It
units
is.
are going to be a problem.
And on a side note, AvoCap has gotten an award of $150,000 for prevention money. The federal government has not, we've gotten our contract, but the money hasn't been released. And our intent is to pay fair market rent for the size unit appropriate. So a one-bedroom would get less money than a five-bedroom would. And that's how we decided to deal with that.
Lou, would you clarify that 150,000, that's for eviction prevention? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
There was a specific state allocation that came through We also have some for motel vouchers. We don't know that we're going to have the request, but again, we'll wait till the summer's over, because, I'm just, fingers crossed, we're past this, but nobody knows what fall brings. Nobody does. And we don't know that there'll be trillions of dollars of aids to states again. We just don't know what that looks like. So right now, our intent is to spend the RAP money as quickly as we can and get it out the door. And preference is given to persons at 60% or less of county median income, but it's also first come, first served. So if you're at 80, I'm not going to put you on the back burner and say, well, we're going to wait and see if any 60s walk through the door. That's not how this is going to go. We're going to spend the money. If they're eligible, they're eligible.
So Lou, this money will be definitely spent before the program ends, before December 31st?
I don't know.
Okay, I guess you don't know that any more than I do, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I'd like to think so. It is our internal decision is to make sure this money gets spent out quickly. It is the most, it has the most freedom with it, less ties with it, less restrictions with it, and it's going to help people who have been affected immediately. As we know, that's the crisis right now. And so we're anxious, we're not going to pace this out and say, gee, that's 7 months, we're going to divide that by 7, that's all. No, we're going to just spend it out.
Did you get any sense from the state that once this money runs out, that they're looking at any other types of funding or programs, or is this?
Well, the ESG money actually was announced first, and that was something the state could do. This was a part of the CARES Act that the state of Wisconsin received, and Tony Evers decided how to spend it and how he was going to divide it. Other states have done this, and it was spent out in 90 minutes. Yeah. So, I mean, I'd like to think, Don, we're going to be able to spend this all out. I'm sad to think we're going to spend this all out, but I think we're going to have to, and I'm okay with that, and we're prepared to do that.
Yeah. Tim, I think we're going to have kind of a meeting of minds in a few weeks just to see what's actually going on. Because right now, everything's just getting put in place, and we don't even know what it is, and until this kind of shakes out. I think this is the first step, but I do think there's got to be a little better coordination with people out there that are working on this issue. I mean, just being aware of each other would be good.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm more or less inclined to agree. This has been very informative so far in terms of letting us know what is out there and what's happening. There will definitely need to be follow-up. What can we as the board, or I don't know, as individuals do to help out AdvoCap at this time?
Well, I guess I would say encourage people to contact us and let us give the directions, because I think the stops are going to become with bad information, or somebody told me to do this, and we're telling them you have to fill out this application first. We can't even begin to work on anything until that's finished out. I want to give you just a quick number for you to think about. 80% county median income from the Winnebago County is $62,550. So that's over $5,000 a month for a family of 4. So they still have to be affected by COVID. So one of us may not be working any longer. Maybe we're a 2-income household. And
So it's 80% of 62.5, or it is 62.5?
80% county median income for a family of 4 in Winnebago County is $62,550 a year.
Wow. Okay, so it's not going to be the income requirement.
I'm thinking we can help a lot of people that way.
Yeah. Most renters have a substantially less household income than that.
Well, but like I said, it does help a variety of people who
Sure.
I mean, what I'm anticipating is a lot of people who have never saw themselves needing aid, looking for assistance. Heck, we're
Sure.
middle class. We've been doing this. Whether or not we're paycheck to paycheck or not, we're doing it. We're doing fine. And then one of us loses our job, or one of us has to stay home because the kids needed homeschooling and I couldn't, they couldn't be left home, and they're in grade school. Whatever the reason is, I'm just saying, if one of us had to stay home, that's going to change a household real
Sure.
fast.
The other thing that's, The other thing that's gonna change,
In our,
right now, there's that extra $600 a week in unemployment through July. Once that runs out, that will have a huge impact on the people that are unemployed and like the restaurants or whatever that haven't reopened and aren't gonna be able to hire them back. So.
Well, and we've enjoyed very low unemployment, but now there are a lot more people looking for less jobs. And, it's just a different world. And we know some of the places manufacturing having a hard time getting materials, so they're not coming back as fast as they thought they would. I mean, there's lots of things in play here.
Mhm.
So I would encourage people, I mean, again, if the message is anything, if they are not earning money now and they're using their savings and they think that, because there's no asset test. So I don't have to go and figure out how much you have in the bank to figure out whether or not you're deserving of the money. That's not the gig. So if people are going through their savings, this sort of thing, but they're affected by this, I would encourage people to apply.
I think the big picture also is that this is going to be immediate, but long-term, we're still evicting like 700 households a year in Winnebago County, is to think long-term, and hopefully if we get mechanisms in place now that we can use those in the future to, maybe there won't be this funding, but to try, we really want to make this a long-term thing, because we're evicting way too many people, and we got to come up with some solutions for that.
I want to talk a little bit about the difference between the amount we were awarded and the amount that we're using for this funds. Part of it is that we are encouraged to provide wraparound services. And what does that mean? We have what we call pass coaches, people achieving self-sufficiency, that talk to people and help them realize what resources they may be eligible for, but talk them through the situation. So one of the questions, again, a common conversation we have is, I need money for rent. How are you doing with your car insurance, your house insurance? Are you paying your medical insurance? Where are you at? Because if I can pay up to $1,000 in rent, and that's not what, they're not asking me for that much, I'd rather pay the rent and have them use that cash to pay other expenses they can.
Mm-hmm.
The utility
Sure.
bill is still coming, I don't, and I've had people who called me and said, I have not made a payment since October. I mean, that's gonna be a lot of money when that comes down. And we haven't even, like I said, that moratorium hasn't even been lifted yet.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that was in the moratorium until you said that. So is there an end date for that,
Not yet. We thought it would be the same time as the rent, and it was not.
in terms of encouraging people to make contact, I mean, where should we, is there a website or phone number? What can we tell people to go to?
In Oshkosh, you can call directly to our office, and that phone number is 426-0150, and ask for the RAP program. I can tell you the receptionist is used to hearing it, so she'll know where to direct people.
Okay.
We can perhaps send out a notice about that on the board Facebook page.
I think it is also part of the RAP brochure or poster that you have posted there. They list all the community action agencies in all the state of Wisconsin, who's covering what. But yes, certainly it's there. And I think that's the Fond du Lac number. I'm just saying it's easy to, Fond du Lac is not, there's nothing wrong with calling the Fond du Lac number. We're not dividing it by counties. As long as you're from one of the 4 that we represent, we'll work with you at whatever person is available to talk to you. We have offices in Fond du Lac and Green Lake and here in Oshkosh, up in Neenah. We're all working on it, so it doesn't matter which office you call.
Thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
Yes.
I wish I
Any
had
other
more.
questions, discussion? We don't want to keep any longer than you need to, or than absolutely necessary, I'm sure. So.
Well, this is just, I mean, it's very exciting, and it seems like, it's taking forever for all the details to come together, but we know it will, and we know what the direction the state is. They're trying to be as allowable as they can, and you don't get to say that about the government very often. So it's exciting to be able to do. It's going to be hard press. Things have been a little, I'm not going to say, we've had a lot of case management over the phone, and this will be on the phone, but it's going to keep us pretty busy for a while for sure. And I think, like I said, I think in a week we'll be able to come back and have a lot clearer vision of what this is really going to be like. Because it's brand new. The whole concept is just brand new.
Tim, when do you want to revisit this? We obviously need to get a little bit of handle on the whole situation. What
Yes.
would be good to revisit this?
Well, that was another item on my list here, which I guess we can discuss. I mean, we have I think our normally scheduled meeting is for next week, Wednesday, correct? So I don't know if that leaves, if enough can be done in that time frame to warrant another meeting, especially given the circumstances. Should we shoot for, say, the second week in July to reconvene?
I would
I
be
think we'll have a
happy,
little bit more of a trend by then,
I'd be
what's
happy to
actually going
report
on.
any numbers to Alan, if nothing else, and just, how many people from Oshkosh have applied, how many what's the average amount we've been able to give, what's the average time it takes to do this. I mean, there's things that we're going to be able to do pretty quickly. I'd be happy to share that with you every Friday, every Monday, whatever, something like that gives.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful. Mr. Davis, is it feasible to meet in July? Or?
Yes, it can be. I'm just looking at the calendar there, and it would probably be difficult to meet the week right after the 4th of July, but probably the 15th.
July 15th?
And I have a conflict at 4 o'clock, I've just been reminded, so it's one or the other, so. The 22nd, that would be my next available, the next available time we could even get the room on a Wednesday afternoon for a Wednesday, at least for this group.
Okay. I think it probably makes the most sense to schedule the meeting for July 22nd then. I don't know, is that a follow-up to this emergency meeting, or does that count as a regular, that be, a regular meeting? So
we could just call it a special meeting again. I can tell you the rest of the staff, we're not doing any letters out for inspections because we're not going in any houses for regular inspections right now, so there's nothing really else to discuss other than the issue at hand regarding evictions and landlord tenant.
All right.
So we can do a special
Very
meeting
well.
on the 22nd.
And maybe if it turns out
All right.
the money runs out really quick and we need to act sooner, we could always try to meet.
I'm just, I think the update will give us kind of what's going on.
Tim, do you think that's too far out, or should we meet in about a month from now?
Well, in about a month from now, we're in the week of the 4th of July, which isn't feasible, and then Mr. Davis has the conflict the following week. So I think we're either looking at 5 weeks, or I don't know if 3 weeks is any better, more towards the end of this month.
Well, I'll see if we can put some figures on our end. There are people that are trying to we have numbers that the evictions, the people that didn't make rent over April and May were not as severe as most people thought it was going to be. It's not saying that they weren't higher than normal, but they weren't, disastrous by any sense. So I'm hoping we can get a little better handle on exactly, how many people were not able to make rent. And of course, June is so new, we won't really get good figures on that until probably the 10th.
Yeah, I understand, and I think that is a reasonable interpretation. So eventually we need time for the new numbers to come out so we can assess the impact fully. In the meantime, we can work on, just more coordinated communication, getting messages out on social media to contact AdvoCap. I would also think it's probably a good idea, even if a little labor intensive, maybe to start perhaps communicating with landlords individually to just ask what their situation is, what resources, do they need, or what is their status, give them the AdvoCap resources to refer to their tenants, perhaps also encourage the benefits of working with landlords and tenants working together to create payment plans and stuff like that in these times. I mean, that seems to be the overwhelming consensus from industry experts that cooperation is the best way to go right now.
Yep.
I'd like to tell you that our staff did reach out to a number of Oshkosh landlords. Some answered their phones, some did not during this time, explaining to them to encourage their tenants to reach out to us and the value of working on a repayment agreement. It's a dual fold because it's a reminder that a lot of the landlords are not interested in working with our programs. But as I said before, we were one of the people paying the rent this month. So they got 100% of their rent because they were subsidized people. And so it's kind of I'm doing it for selfish reasons as well as for public reasons to remind landlords we're here to help them and their tenants. So, I agree. I think there's some that didn't understand. We had landlords who gave everybody the notice. So like I said, everybody was calling. Even though they were paying their rent, they felt that they were supposed to because their landlord told them, rather than landlords just sorting out the people who are behind and say, hey, you may want to, if we're going to work this out, this is somebody you want to contact. So, Don, you're right. There's a lot of misunderstanding. A lot of people are confused as to, what it's all about, but we'll continue to sort through that.
Yeah. Well, I think just really good education of people out there is a lot of awareness and education building is probably primary right now.
Yeah, and it seems the best thing we can do is just help the staff, help effectively communicate and get your message and instructions out so we can, or the AdvoCap message and instructions out, because that definitely seems like the thing that's going to make the biggest difference at this point. All right. Any other questions or discussion for AdvoCap?
Well, I have some questions, but if we're, for when we're finished with our guest speaker, we can carry on with our meeting. Are we finished with our guest speaker?
I believe, unless there's any other questions for them.
No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Seeing none, thank
Great
you.
information.
Thank you, Lou.
All right. Any, quick follow-up or discussion on what we just learned? Is communication the best way to, communication and encouraging education and access to resources seems the best thing we can do as a group moving forward.
I appreciate you calling this meeting, Tim, because I think hopefully it'll get some of the ships that are passing in the night, aware of each other and a little bit more aware of what's going on.
Agreed. Linda, what were your questions?
Well, just because some of the reading material that you forwarded, and thanks for that, really indicated that it's important to have a long-range plan or to think ahead of where we're at right now. So even though we don't know the numbers right now, and we probably might have some better information in July, I still think it's good to ask some questions like the question I'm going to ask. Is there anything that prohibits the city of Oshkosh or our board or whoever from soliciting for donations from corporations in the area to help in this project?
I don't believe there's any prohibition for soliciting donations. It's something typically the city's not done. It's been more of a United Way Community Foundation activity. I'd probably start with them first. Usually the donations the city gets are for fire department or police department or parks department types of things. It's not really for programs specifically, other than the zoo has its own foundation and maybe some other foundation, like the library and the museum. For this program, nothing like this exists at the city, but I believe the
Right.
United Way and the Community Foundation have programs for that type of thing.
Right, but we're kind of in a new situation, you know,
Mhm.
so we could create something if we wanted to, or create a fund that we could send to AdvoCap, just like Fond du Lac County had some companies send funds to AdvoCap. So anyway, that was my question, to see if we could do anything about kind of raising funds. Even through the neighborhood association. I mean, there are neighborhoods that do very well for themselves when they're trying to raise money for things. And there's some people that are well off and some people that aren't, and this is a challenging time. And if there's a way that we could figure out how to get funds from either groups of people or companies or neighborhoods or whatever, I think that would be a good thing. It's just a thought, though, so I'm just throwing that out.
I think, Linda, that's an interesting option. It would be that's something we need, the clearer, more specific numbers on to really pursue, but is a decent thought. But
Okay, thanks.
I know some communities have been able to repurpose their community development block grant dollars, the CDBG, maybe for projects that they weren't able to complete because of COVID. Has the city looked at that, or is that even a possibility?
It's a possibility. I can tell you the CARES Act gave the city about $494,000, but they haven't come out with the rules on that. Typically, those have been used for homelessness and public services like food pantries, and it could be used for rental assistance is what we're thinking, but they still haven't come out with the rules. And my last report I've heard, they're still at least a month away, so that's my bias would be to meet in July again, because maybe I actually have an answer for you at that point as to what we can use those dollars for and what process we have to go through to allocate those dollars, because we can't just say we're going to do this. You have to follow a public participation process, and we typically have to coordinate that with HUD, and then they have to approve it before we can actually spend the money. So it doesn't happen overnight, unfortunately. It might happen a little quicker because of COVID, but there's still a process that they require us to go through, and they've given us no direction on that at this point in time. And the money that the city has received, we don't have a rental assistance program. We spend most of our money on owner rehabilitation, and we went through that this spring, and we've actually allocated those dollars for public services and, I'm sorry, not public, the rehabilitation program. We do have dollars in our public services account and a central city account for acquisition and demolition of blighted properties, and the public services goes to like the homeless shelter and the food pantry and the literacy council, and sometimes the senior center for special projects that they have for low and moderate income seniors. That hasn't been decided yet, but if it was allocated in last year's budget back in November, so if we're gonna change that, we have to go through that process with HUD and the city council again. And we'd have to tell them what the plan is. And right now, I don't know what to tell them what the plan would be for rental assistance, but I believe it would be an eligible activity. And I believe there's been other communities outside the state of Wisconsin that have created their own funds separate from block grant funds even. I don't know how they do that, but I assume that's possible in Wisconsin. We just haven't found a rental assistance program in a Wisconsin community yet.
there are several examples of.
I don't know much about it because it didn't affect me, but I know that Madison passed some type of rent assistance, I believe.
Yeah, that was through the county.
What did everyone do?
I think it was $10 million through the county. The county board approved it, and then they're working with the Tenant Resource Center.
Waukegan
Yeah,
passed
the Tenant Resource Center.
Yep.
And Dane County, I believe,
think,
is going to use block grant funds.
I'm not
I don't know where
sure.
the money's coming from.
Yeah, I don't know where their funding came from for that.
I know I contacted the Tenant Resource Center and they said they only work in Dane County. They can't work in Oshkosh.
Mhm. No.
That is correct.
A very good resource, though.
For general info, yeah. All right. Any other pressing questions, discussion pertaining to the July agenda? Can follow up on these items. We'll follow up on AdvoCap. Mr. Davis can give us a better idea of how the CARES distribution is working, and we can continue to discuss the long-term implications and our long-term actions for this. In the short term, we should use the Facebook page or the RHAB Facebook page to encourage contact with AdvoCab, as Ms. Shear indicated. Anything else?
I do just want to share, so in the packet that we received, there's the 2 fact sheets about tips for tenants and landlords. So these were developed with a group that Don and I are part of. Also, Lou is in that group. It's an eviction prevention group. So through my work with the health department, we created these resources. And I do have a stack of these flyers. They're in color. We posted them around the city. So if anyone wants copies of them and has tenants that could use them, or if you have places that you can distribute, take them, feel free. People on the phone, if you need a stack, just feel free to contact me and I can get you some.
Is that similar to what you shared on Facebook recently, Lindsay?
Yes, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And it was,
Yeah, if there's
there was
a
also,
digital version, I would take that in an email.
okay, yeah, I can share that. There was also an ad in the Oshkosh Herald a couple weeks ago and an article that went with it too. So.
All right, excellent. Anything else? Thank you all for taking the time to be here. I think it was important and very informative, and I'm feeling a little bit calmer about stuff now. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Thank you very much. Stay well, everyone. We'll see you in July.